Another year, guys. Not much has really happened in AAA gaming, huh? Granted, there wasn't a whole lot for me to talk about in 2020 either. Being that the government is still putting beer bug restrictions on us around the world, game releases have slowed down quite a bit. The PS5 and Xbox Series X have been out for over a year now, and a handful of worthwhile exclusives have actually come out for these platforms. While it's not great, I suppose it's still better than 2014, when the only decent games coming out were on a console nobody had. Being that I have an incredible new PC now, I have no reason to buy either of these consoles. I'll concede that the PS5 has some decent offerings for exclusives. I'm not personally chomping at the bit to buy a PS5 to play these games, especially since they're still pretty scarce. Well, I suppose this is why I review what I personally did in the year rather than the actual games that came out this year. However, I do feel that I should at least talk about the games that actually did come out this year. There were actually quite a few games that came out this year that I did play. However, I only finished a handful of them. I'd been looking forward to Untitled for a while, and I will say it was well worth the wait. I don't personally care about the writing in the game, or most games in fairness, but I was more than happy with what I got from the gameplay. It's Hyper Light Drifter on steroids. What else could I ask for in a game? There was also a remake of Nier Replicant. Those of you who watch my streams know that I played to ending A. Since I've already played the original game and achieved all 4 endings, I'm not exactly in any hurry to play 30 more hours of the game. However, that's not to say I won't come back to the game again, as I understand there is now a 5th ending. Thankfully, I don't necessarily need all of the other endings to get to it, so maybe it'll be worth my time. As for the game itself, while it is still very repetitive, the combat is much better than the original game. They've even added some content to the second half of the game. I personally just think it was added to make you feel bad about killing the shades, but it was still nice anyway. Those who want to see the story before Automata should definitely give this one a look. A game that practically saved my life last year during the peak of the Coof got a sequel this year, Honey Pop 2. While I love Steam and all, I had to buy this one from Faku. The game's good, and that's all I can really say. Next, as far as fighting games go, the only noteworthy release was the new Melty Blood. While the auto combo system feels pretty intrusive, I do quite enjoy the game and intend to play more of it, especially when more of my friends get it. The rest of the time has been dedicated to playing more Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Y'all bitches already know I love me some Xenoblade 2, and having Pyra and Mithra join the cast was glorious. It doesn't hurt that they're actually pretty fun to use. I may have actually found myself a new main and have since taken to trying out several other fighters. Samurai Showdown has also escaped the clutches of the Epic Game Store, but it seems it was too little too late, as the player counts are rock bottom. A shame too, because the game is actually pretty fun. However, there is a silver lining to this. SNK appeared to have learned not to put their games out on the Epic Game Store if King Fighters 15 is any indication. We were also blessed by the wondrous second chapter of Deltarune. Considering my current tastes, I didn't expect to be as wowed by this game, but I was very wrong. While it's still horseshit that the game is locked at 30 FPS, I still had a lot of fun with the game and I'm considering starting the other routes. I seriously cannot wait for the next 4 chapters. God, I hope I just don't have to wait too long. But perhaps the biggest story for me personally in PC gaming is my switch to Linux. Microsoft have had control over my PC gaming for far too long, if you ask me. Having an OS that actually feels personal to me is a breath of fresh air. Though it took a while to really break in this thing, I'm now at the point where I am streaming games from it regularly, starting with my streams from Halloween. And what a blast that was. Perhaps the highlight of the streams would be Penumbra. No jump scares, no gimmicks, no bullshit. Just horror. I enjoyed every second of it and would recommend it to any fans of horror. I've still not yet finished Dead Space, but I am impressed with what I've played of it so far. It definitely does action horror better than RE4 and definitely RE5. Alone in the Dark is an immutable classic that I'd argue still holds up to this day. Silent Hill 4 is... I'll have to get back to you on that sometime. Obscure is also quite good so far, though I'm not quite as compelled to finish it as I am the other games. On the note of horror titles, we have Resident Evil 8 that came out this year. What I've played of it so far shows promise, but what I've heard about the remainder is less so. I'll have to reserve judgment for when I actually finish it, but so far so good. I'm not going to say that 2021 was a bad year for games, I just haven't gotten around to playing or finishing most of them. Tales of Arise looks interesting, and the demo was pretty fun. Record of Lodoss War got a Metroidvania this year, and I still need to finish that. Final Fantasy got a pixel remaster, but all the additional content from the subsequent releases was gutted. I personally only really recommend it if you've never played these games before. If you own a Switch or a PC, you can also check out Bravely Default 2. The 12 hours I've played of that game is quite good. Oh, and Shin Megami Tensei 5. I still need to play that one. Now, onto the games I actually have played and completed this year, that were released years ago. Those of you who watch my streams know I've been marathoning the Zelda games for a certain upcoming video. I've finished Minish Cap, Twilight Princess, and Zelda 2, and I'm currently going through Triforce Heroes and Phantom Hourglass. The script is almost finished, but I want these games fresh on my mind. I am curious as to what they did to improve Skyward Sword on the Switch, but I also cannot endorse what Nintendo are doing with the pricing. As such, I bought it off of eBay for a reduced price. By way of the Retron 5, I was able to play a fair bit of Yoshi's Island for the first time. It was surprisingly challenging for a SNES-era Nintendo game. I was also fortunate enough to play System Shock 1 and 2. It makes me all the more excited for the remake of the first game, especially with the recent demo we were given. It seems to channel even more of that Dead Space feel that itself was inspired by System Shock. Very nice. I guess it was another game that was delayed by the COOF. Here's to hoping the game releases very soon. In preparation for a certain other game, I finished Metroid Fusion. It's pretty linear when compared to other games in the series, and I'm not a fan of how its story often gets in the way of the gameplay, but it's Metroid and kind of hard to screw up. I've yet to play a truly awful Metroid game, and this one's no exception. Granted, I've not yet gotten to Other M. And if you have absolutely no taste or self-respect at all, the Final Fantasy VII Remake is now out on PC, on the Epic Game Store, for only $70. It's a treat for anyone who's a fan of slow-walking sections and a ton of cutscenes. Oh god, please be good, 16. So Crimson, what is your game of the year of 2021? Good question. I'm glad you didn't ask. Folks, it's really hard for a game these days to live up to the hype for me anymore. However, with Nintendo injecting new life into the Metroid series, Dread most certainly did. Few games these days are so much fun that I actually play it twice back to back, but Metroid Dread is now one of those games. It's quite possibly my favorite 2D Metroid of all time, and easily my game of the year. Part of the reason is not too dissimilar to why Untitled was my game of the year up until now. Not only allowing for a sequence breaking, but even being designed for and rewarding players for going above and beyond to learn outside mechanics. It's another feather in the Switch's hat, and it is a masterpiece. All that said, 2021 was pretty uneventful for me, as far as gaming goes. While there is a fair bit of stuff that I've been working on, it's also stuff that is outside of this channel. I guess maybe I didn't have as much of a drive to play this year's releases. Or maybe I'm becoming so jaded by the industry that I just don't care enough to buy everything anymore. But there is still 2022 to look forward to. Whatever the case, what the hell did you guys play this year? Let me know in the comments below. I can see 2022 is off to a great start already.
If you don't like it, don't watch it. Peace!
But hopefully it gets better. Until then, over and out.